on the planet Earth, men have the propensity of being scoundrels, but also they have the possibility of being saints. None depicts this reality like Jacob in the book of Genesis. I say this after making critical observation as a churchman, theologian, scholar, preacher, and I made the conclusions that there is a possibility of a human being either becoming a saint or a scoundrel. And I want to say that Jacob is a clear-cut testimony of how a human being can both become a scoundrel and a saint. Jacob is recorded in the book of Genesis. Genesis was penned by Moses at around 1527 to 1487 BC, when he was in the palace. When he was in Pharaoh's palace, he had the access to the records of the families of the Israelites. And that's why he quotes extensively from the genealogies. The book of Genesis was written by Moses to explain God's faithfulness amidst the sufferings of the children of Israel in slavery in Egypt. And he gives them hope if they remember the promises of God. And he tells them the story of Jacob, their patriarch. Jacob's name is derived from the etymology of the word Jacob, which means a deceiver. Jacob was a scoundrel by all intents and purposes. The first thing that he did was to take advantage of the hunger of his elder brother by the name of Esau. And what did he do? He took advantage and bought the birthright by a bowl of soup. The scoundrel took advantage of the hunger of his brother, and he was not thinking right. Just like all scoundrels, they take advantage of the real suffering, and he bought the bad price. He bought the birthright of his elder brother. Number two, Jacob schemed with a mother. And what did they do? They hoodwinked the senile father Isaac to invoke a blessing on Jacob at the expense of Esau. He even changed his voice and prepared a meal hastily, and finally he got his way. I want to tell you that even a scoundrel can encounter God. When Esau learned that, he was furious and he decided to pursue Jacob. Jacob fled to the uncle's place. The name of the uncle was Laban. And what happened? I'll tell you later. But before he encounters Laban, he encounters God twice. Number one, in Bethel and in Peniel. In Bethel, his encounter with God was superficial. And what did he do? He got the blessings of God and he promised a tithe. Most of the people might not change completely from being scoundrels to saints if they only encounter God superficially. Later at Peniel, we learned that he encountered God, and there was a remarkable change. But I want to tell you that if you are a scoundrel, Number one, you are going not to fool every person in every place. You can fool some people sometimes, as the reggae music goes, but you cannot fool all the people all the times. Jacob meets his match in his uncle Laban, a senior scoundrel who tricked Jacob to work for 14 years for the daughter Rachel that he loved. If you are a scoundrel, one day you are going to be hit. Number two, he estranged himself from his brother and he suffered untold consequences. He worked twice as much to earn what he could have earned only for 7 years. None of the scoundrel issues pays. In fact, the consequences are terrible. As he goes back from his uncle's place with the wives and children, he was supposed to encounter Esau, who was resolute to pay him back with the same coins. But before he encounters Esau, he has an encounter that changes a scoundrel to a saint. He encounters God in Peniel. And when he encounters God, you see, scoundrels more often than not, they walk with a swagger of deception. They walk with a swagger of deceiving people and taking advantage of people and getting their way. But when Jacob was to change from a scoundrel to a saint, he had to encounter God the Almighty. And his life never remained the same. Number one, when you want to encounter God and to become a saint, the first thing that you're supposed to do is to remove all the distractions and the barriers. He takes the children away, the animals, the property, and himself. He encounters God, an angel of God, or maybe a theophany of the second person of the divine Trinity. When we encounter God, we are supposed to remove all the pretensions and the deception and to meet God as we are. I like the hymn, Just As I Am. We are supposed to face God as we are. And that's what Jacob did. Away from distractions, away from sins, and away from pretense and hiding, we are supposed to face God as we are. And when he faced God, he wrestled with God. For the whole night, he had faith. He was determined. And he realized that an encounter with God will change things and his life. We need to face God as we are. Wrestle with him as we are. That he deals with our predisposition to sin and our affinity to evil. And I want to say that lust, sin, can only be dealt with when we face God as we are. And I want to say, as he wrestled with God, God dislocated the joints of his heels. Why did God wound him? He wounded him to show him that he is sovereign. And he deals with our ego and our false pretensions. The swagger was rendered invalid. And when the swagger was rendered invalid, he realized who he was, a limping man, that without God, he is nothing. And what did he do? He persisted with God until he received the blessings. May the Lord wound us and dislocate the pride that is within us. And may He make us to realize that we need to limp away from Him as we realize that we are sinful. Not only sinful, but we are terrible people without God. As we limp, we realize we depend upon God. May also persist in wrestling with God and seeking His blessings in prayer. For without God's blessing, we are nothing. With God's blessing, we are everything. And as he wrestled with God, God transformed him from Jacob the deceiver to Israel, the father of many nations. It is my prayer that as you wrestle with God, that God will not only wound your ego and selfishness, but He will change your life and transform you from a scoundrel to a saint, from a troubleshooter to a hand that touches and blesses everybody. Jacob, the great servant of God, encountered all these, and Jacob was never the same again. He left a transformed man. He reconciled with Esau, and he left his children. In Genesis 49, he blessed all of them. And from Jacob, we have a great nation by the name of Israel, invincible, though surrounded by enemies, but they're able to thrive and they are able to make a difference, transforming wastelands and deserts into blooms of fruits and blessings to the entire nation. It is my prayer that you will change your fortune like Jacob, from a scoundrel to a saint, from a troubleshooter to a hands that will bless many people. Wherever you are, as a father, as a mother, as a child, as a teacher, as a priest, remember that you can change from a scoundrel to a saint. And may the Lord bless you as we seek to impart people. Let's remember that the superficial encounter with God will not change anything, but it is the deep encounter with God after removing all the distraction in Peniel that will make us become better people. May you change from a scoundrel, scoundrel to a saint. In the name of God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.